Happy Tuesday and happy strength day. So today what we have, we're going to slow things down after that sandwich we had yesterday and move into some strength work. We're back to our squat. So our warm-up is going to consist of a heel elevated squat hold of 10 to 30 seconds, banking that really good active time. Into a heel elevated goblet squat for 3 to 5 at a 3-1-3 tempo. And then we're going to do a single arm dumbbell front squat for 3 aside just to work on some unilateral loading. And then finishing off with a foot assist pistol practice for what we have coming up in our work set. Now if you don't have anything to put your heels up on, that's okay. Do a squat hold and then a goblet squat without the heels elevated. But if you do, play around that little heel elevation. It'll help open up those hips, knees, ankles a little bit more gently and work on some flexion in that ankle and just kind of give you a different sense of warm-up today. We're going to hit that for 1 to 2 rounds. We're going to move into the bottom piece, which is where we're going to practice our dumbbell squat of choice. So we are either going to do a goblet or a front rack position. We're going to do 3 squats, one at a 7-second eccentric, pretty slow, another at a 5-second eccentric, and then the last one at a 3-second eccentric. So gradually getting a little faster, but still taking our time with this movement set as we flow through it. Then we're going to move into a single leg RDL for 3 aside. You can choose to load this or not. This is really just to kind of gear up the hamstrings, wake them up after yesterday, and then we're going to do some dumbbell standing march. Again, giving you an opportunity to kind of experiment with this because we're using it in our work set. So maybe a lighter weight, different hand placement for it, just see where it takes you and where you want to play with that dumbbell. 1 to 2 rounds of that. Getting yourself to kind of that opening, starting working weight that we're going to use today, because we have 3 to 5 rounds of a dumbbell squat, goblet, or front, 8 reps at a 3-second eccentric on each rep. Then you're going to do a foot assist pistol for 5 to 8 aside with a 3-second eccentric, a goblet side lunge for 12 to 16 total count, and you do that with a 3-second eccentric as well. If you're not looking at this being a goblet, you can just do an empty-handed side lunge if that's more challenging, or if it's a challenging movement for you, you don't want to add load, don't worry about it. That eccentric will be enough to add that sensation of extra loading. Then we're going to finish off with a dumbbell standing march for 30 seconds. Now, you can choose to do a goblet, a farmer's, a front rack for the standing march, but I would suggest changing the position of the dumbbells in terms of what you're using for your dumbbell squat. So if you're doing a goblet squat, I wouldn't hold the dumbbell in a goblet for the standing march. I'd do front rack or farmers. Vice versa, if you're doing the front squat, I would hold goblet or farmers. Just to change the stimulus and the placement of the loading for that movement set. Now let's get you ready. Let's have some fun working on some strength. All right, let's get those feet under those hips and start waking our body up. Let's take those arms big and tall up overhead. Let's reach to one side, and then we'll come back through, reach to the other side. And come back up, and a forward fold. We're gonna touch those toes. Walk up those shins. We're gonna come back down, framing a foot, and stepping that foot back. So from here, we're gonna take that inside hand, we're just gonna grip that floor and that foot. We're going to turn the torso, we're going to come back to center, lower the knee, and then press the hip. We're going to come back to center, and press the hip. Come back to center, press the hip. Come back to center, straighten the leg, and turn the torso. We'll come back through, plant the hand, step back. Nice down dog position, reaching through those hips. Set those shoulders, just walk those heels. Again, kind of stretching out those ankles, waking them up a little bit from yesterday, plus kind of getting ready for what's to come with those squats. We'll come back into our plank, stepping that other foot up. Inside hand's going to lock that front foot in place. We're going to turn. We're going to come through, lowering the knee. We're going to press the hip. Come back to center. Press the hip. Come back to center. And press the hip. Come back to center. Straightening out the leg. Turn the torso. We'll come back through. Plant the hand. Step it back into that down dog as we reach those hips. And again, just walking out those feet. Nice and gentle. Nice and easy. Just really waking those positions up a little bit. We'll come back into our plank. Tiptoe those feet up, roll our ourselves fired up. Now, pause the video if you have any extra movement you'd like to take down for yourself that's going to get you prepped and ready to go. Please do so. Pause it, rock it, come back and join me. We're going to start warming up those feet and getting that squat on. All right, we're going to kickstart off with a heel elevated squat hold and a heel elevated goblet squat. Now, if you don't have anything to put your feet on, that's okay. You can just work this on the floor, working on that squat hold and a goblet squat, or even air squat to start off your day. So what we're going to do, I have a 10-pound plate here, and I'm just going to put my dumbbell off to the side because I'll use that afterwards. I'm going to set my stance up, my toes straight ahead, big toes on the floor, nice and tall and upright. So from here, I'm going to take my hips towards my heels, staying centered through those laces. I'm going to stay active, and I'm going to hold this bottom position for 10 to 30 seconds, making sure I'm only making as much time as I can come out of it the proper way. So we want to make sure that when we rise out of the squat, shoulder and hip rise together at the same time, and we don't have our hips shooting up tall or falling out of position. So you can either bank time up to 30 seconds or just do one hold for what you can maintain in that proper position. Then you're going to go right into a goblet squat or heel elevated goblet squat. So the setup is the same. My dumbbell comes up under the chin. This time I'm just going to take it down nice and slow, 3-second tempo, keeping that body nice and upright, little pause, and a nice slow rise. So taking it down nice and smooth, really working on that nice upright torso, and then coming up nice and tall. From there, I'm going to step off of the plate, and I'm going to clean my dumbbell up to my shoulder to a single arm dumbbell front squat. So I'm working on some unilateral loading. So I'm going to do 3 reps on one side, flip to the other side, 3 reps on the other. Now the squat mechanics are the same, but it might feel different if your heels were elevated to now being flat on the floor. So we take it down, nice smooth tempo, just nice and steady all the way down, and stand, working on pushing into that dumbbell, staying as upright as we can for each of those reps. So there's not a lot of difference between the squat mechanics when it comes to the goblet and or the front rack. The only difference is I'm pushing into that dumbbell a little bit to keep it stable and secure as I work through those squat mechanics. Last but not least, we're going to see these in our work set, which is a foot assist pistol. So we can work through multiple different variations of this. Our first variation is toe in the kickstand, hips are square, no load. I draw my hip towards my heel as I keep my weight over that balancing leg, and I stand tall. So same squat mechanics apply that we were just executing in our squat hold, goblet, and our single arm front squat. The only difference is being on one foot. Now, if that is getting easier and you're hitting good depth, you can load that up under the chin in a goblet position as we take that same squat down, focusing on our weight through that front leg, staying in that upright position. Once I've done that variation for a while, playing around with some different loading options and getting heavier, but still hitting proper depth, I can take away that leg for balance in the kickstand, and I can use it on the back of my heel for some support in my hip, and I can still draw that hip down into that good position and stand. So the mechanics are the same, I'm just having to support myself with more balance on that single leg. Now once that gets easier after a while, you can start loading that as well. So taking that toe away, goblet loading, and hitting that for a while. And once we hit that position for a little bit, we're getting closer and closer to playing around with some other pistol options. So it's a really nice option for you guys to experiment with to build that foundation in that pistol. Now as a quick recap, we have a heel elevated squat hold, 10 to 30 seconds, heel elevated goblet squat for 3 to 5 and a 3-1-3, single arm dumbbell front squat for 3 to 5 reps per side, and then a foot assist pistol for 3 a side. Kind of figuring out where you're going to live in that pistol in our work set. So pause it, rock it, hit that for 1 to 2 rounds, get yourself fired up. We're going to move into the next phase, which is going to talk about our options for our dumbbell squat and getting our hamstrings ready. Alrighty guys, we are now in our next phase of work. We're going to experiment warming up our dumbbell squat that we're going to use in the workout. So the mechanics are all the same, so in terms of our position. So we have our choice of pulling this dumbbell up under the chin or holding one or two dumbbells in our front rack position. So what we have here is a choice for our squats. So we've kind of done these already, but I'm going to go through them once again. Our feet are hip to shoulder width, so our natural squat stance. I'm pushing into my dumbbell in my goblet squat, keeping it close. I'm going to take my hips towards my heels, keeping those knees tracking the toes, and keeping that weight nice and flat through that foot. And again, this doesn't change if I'm going into the front rack. The only thing that changes is the dumbbells resting on my shoulder for the back of it, and the front is being held kind of at a 45-degree with my arm. I can do two dumbbells, or I can do four on one side, four on the other, with a single. And again, that hip goes towards the heels, and that good squat position, nice and tall and upright through my body. Once I figured out my dumbbell squat of choice, you can even play with both there, just experimenting with them to see which one you want to do the most. You're going to move into your single leg RDL, and you have a few choices here. We can choose to load this, kickstand leg down, hands both holding onto the bell, single hand to that balancing leg, to that kickstand leg, or holding to the balancing leg. Or no weight at all. Neither is right nor wrong. It's just going to be slightly different sensation in your body. So for all intents and purposes today, I'm going to demonstrate holding onto the dumbbell by both bells, holding it to the front. I square my hips up nice and set. I'm going to stand up nice and tall, and I'm going to draw my hip back into that nice hinge as I take my dumbbell towards my knee, and then I'm going to stand tall, opening my hip and knee both at the same time. So again, drawing my hip back into that hinge, finding that position, and standing tall. My goal here is to feel that in that balancing leg, in that upper hamstring, lower glute, to make sure I'm not feeling in my calf. I want to make sure that I'm feeling in that upper hamstring. Now once we're done that, we have our dumbbell standing march. We can do this goblet, front rack, farmer's or suitcase, and we're going to work on standing nice and tall and stable through the upper body. And we're going to work on marching those legs back and forth, keeping that body and that upper body still. So that upper body is going to be completely solid and engaged throughout that midsection. And you're just going to keep that dumbbell, those knees moving for 30 seconds. A couple key points to keep in mind with this, with our movement, is making sure that as I lift my leg, my balancing leg is nice and strong and it's not collapsing. So we want to make sure we're listening to our body as we go. Yes, we want to lift that knee as high as we can, but we don't want to lift it so high that my body starts to give and says, nope, can't go that high. So listen to your body, see where it feels and see where it has to go, and work that nice standing march at whatever tempo you would like. As a quick recap, we have a dumbbell squat, 3 reps, 7-second, 5-second, 3-second eccentric on each one. Single leg RDL for 3 aside, loaded or unloaded. Dumbbell standing march for 30 seconds to figure out where you want to hold the dumbbell and or the loading for that. Hit that for 1 to 2 rounds. And then we should be ready to start our first round of work. So pause the video, figure out those loadings, get yourself ready, organized, and we're going to start our first round of strength. All right, we've made it to our work set. We have 3 to 5 rounds. We have our dumbbell squat. So whatever that happens to be, goblet or front rack, you're going to do 8 reps with a 3-second eccentric on each one. Then you're going to do a foot assist pistol, 5 to 8 per side of the style of foot assist pistol you are going to work on today. You are using a 3-second eccentric on each of those reps. Our next movement we haven't talked about yet is a goblet side lunge or a side lunge. So we're going to get ourselves set up in a wide stance. And even though we're doing a side lunge, I want you guys to think about your squat mechanics. Our feet are nice and flat. We should feel our big toe and our whole foot in contact with the floor. I'm going to draw my hip down towards my heel as I find that nice upright body position, and I'm going to push through that leg. Then I'm going to do the same on the other side, drawing the hip down towards the heel and then standing tall. We're taking this pretty slow. Each one of these has a 3-second eccentric. If this is an easier movement for you and you'd like to load it, you are more than welcome to do this in goblet style, or if you're looking at that going, 12 to 16 reps of that on its own with an eccentric, no load for this person, that's fine, all right? That is totally fine. Work the eccentric. The tempo and the reps are more important than loading that movement. So work on that nice smooth tempo, work on that loading, and see where it takes you. Once we're done 12 to 16 alternating reps, we are gonna hit dumbbell standing march for 30 seconds. Remembering when we're doing this, holding the dumbbell in the opposite position or a different position than what you're squatting in. So if you're choosing front rack, maybe hold goblet for the march. If you're squatting goblet, maybe hold front rack or farmers for the march. So play around with that, figure out where you want to go, just so you're not overtaxing that one position in today's work set. Now today we have a ton of work, so I want you guys to embrace the idea of a rest after each of these rounds. Minimum, I'd say 2 to 2.5 minutes minimum of rest in between this work set. So take advantage of that, have fun with it, you guys. I hope you enjoy it. It's a great chance to work on some really fine tuning of these skills and really finessing your squat positioning. So have fun, work for quality. We'll see you tomorrow for a slightly higher heart rate. I'm excited for what's to come. I hope you guys are too. Bye, you guys.